Good afternoon and welcome to Biztech's APAC Cybersecurity Show. Now, it's Monday, the 9th of January, and starting from today, every Monday we'll be coming to you at 2 p.m. Singapore time to update the region on the latest threats and incidents to help you better protect yourself. On the last Friday of every month, we will also be putting together a longer show where we discuss issues in greater depth in topics that range from ransomware, supply chain risks, insider leaks and theft of trade secrets, as well as Internet of Things security, among other topics. Now, joining the conversation to bring an expert lens to the show every week is my co-host, Benjamin Ang. He's the head of Cyber and Homeland Defence at the Center of Excellence for National Security at the S. Rajaratnam's School of International Studies at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Now, Ben, with that long introduction, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Brian, and thanks for the kind introduction. I want to clarify, if you call me an expert, I'm not a CISO, I'm not a deeply technical person, but what I do is that in my research of all the things that are happening in Asia Pacific, I bridge the gap between the technical and policy and legal and business sides of it. So that's where I want to come in.
Now, and that's very, very important, Ben, because we will be inviting industry experts and vendors to share their experiences and keep everyone up to date on the latest developments in cybersecurity. Now, Ben, to get things started today, at the start of the year, we want to take a focus and put one country under the microscope to highlight issues in cybersecurity. Today, we focus on Malaysia. Now, Malaysia has had, for a start, just a few weeks ago, key incidents that happened in December, where Maybank, Malaysia's largest bank, as well as their election commission, as well as their pay TV operator, Astro, they've all announced data breaches. Tell us a little bit more about this, Ben.
Well, Brian, in December, a website listed details of 3.5 million Astro subscribers and 1.8 million Maybank customers and 7.2 million voters, allegedly. And so the Malaysian government, I understand, has actually launched an investigation into this. It's a big deal because banking information is very sensitive. The regulators are going to be taking a really close look at whether the bank had actually protected its data. And of course, the telco information is also very sensitive. And I don't need to say that election voters' information, personal particulars, is also very, very sensitive.
Now, Ben, but one of the things that's interesting is this, that Maybank came out and denied that the breach actually happened.
So there's one interesting point about that, right? That as a bank, they are really in a position to have done their checks really quickly because they know they're very tightly regulated and they've got all the checks in place to be able to assess very quickly and to come up with a very confident statement. And I'll take it at face value that they say they haven't been breached, I think the regulator will go in and investigate further. But then where's the equivalent message from Astro? So
absolutely.
If you happen to be a business that's caught in a data breach, right, the same week as a bank, right, you'll find that the bank can respond probably within days or a week to say whether they've been breached or not, and they'll have their response. But would you, as a business, know how to go to the public and assure the public? What could you actually say? Because if you are starting from scratch, it'll take you weeks for forensic analysis to determine whether you have been breached or not.
So Ben, this then brings the question of preparedness, isn't it? Because obviously a key lesson on how to handle this is Maybank. They've come out very quickly, as you said, and very confidently and said, no, there's no breach because they've been prepared.
Exactly. They already have been going through, I'm very sure banks do this, they go through the whole process of if we were breached, what do we need to do? Who do we call? Actually, it's actually a key thing because they may have people whom they are ready to call in to come and investigate for them. But for the average business, do you know who to call when the thing happens? Because, like it or not, it's going to happen someday.
And you talk about it's going to happen someday. It's actually happening a lot. And so with the lens on Malaysia, let me go through some, just in the last couple of months, key data breaches that have happened. Now, in November, we had AirAsia. It was hit by a dicing ransomware attack, jeopardizing personal information for about 5 million passengers. Now, the communications ministry did detect unauthorized access, said that they did detect unauthorized access to its servers on November 12th. Then in October, we had Carousel, Malaysia, and Singapore with a breach of around 2.6 million Carousel users from both those markets. And the stolen data was also sold online on the dark web. In September, another budget airline, Malindo Air, which is now rebranded as Batik Air, saw 45 million customer addresses, dates of birth, addresses, passport numbers, etc., all compromised. So this is happening with greater frequency. And obviously, these are the publicized data breaches where companies have come out and actually admitted to it. There are far more cases where they've not been disclosed to the general public. So,
absolutely.
So Ben, what's your take on this then, Ben?
And Brian, you're exactly right, because there are cases where companies don't even know they've been breached. Some companies will know they've been breached for months, maybe even years. In the case of the ransomware, it's not just the fact that ransomware was actually basically locking up the AirAsia systems. A lot of the ransomware gangs will take a copy of the data before they hold it for ransom. So if you're a customer of AirAsia, your personal particulars could be on sale next week or the week after. Or if you're on Batik Air. And of course, who hasn't used Carousel? In fact, it's quite funny, right? It's selling it for only like US 1,000. I think somebody lowballed him on Carousel for that.
Now, Ben, give us your analysis and conclusion from all this. What are the things that we need to do to really protect ourselves, not only as a business, but also as an individual? Because after all, this is here to stay. Cybersecurity and the awareness of it needs to be elevated, which is why we are having this show in the first place, really to educate the region, businesses, whether it's SME or large enterprises or individuals, on how to protect ourselves.
Right, that's absolutely right. And to protect ourselves, we have to first realize that our data is very likely already breached. Because whether you're a customer of any of these airlines or the bank or Astro or Carousel, your user ID, email address, and password are probably on sale somewhere on the dark web. Hopefully not for only US 1,000. But still, because a lot of people reuse their email address and password, and let's say you used it for maybe a dozen other websites, you're going to have to change your password, because these cyber criminals are going to reuse these email addresses and passwords to try to get into your other accounts, which are more sensitive. You might say, oh, no big deal for my airline ticket or my Carousel, but they could get into many other things. If you use it for your office, even worse. So you'd have to go into your dozen, maybe 20 or 30 other websites where you use the same password. I'd say much better to not use the same password for different websites. Every website use a significantly different password. It may be inconvenient.
That brings in, and from a practical standpoint, many of us tend to use either the same password and user IDs or slight variations of each one. What are the best ways really to manage our passwords better? Because many of us are overwhelmed.
I was in a bookstore the other day and I saw people selling, the bookstore was selling what used to be phone book address books, but now they're called password books. So keep a log of your passwords. Actually, it seems funny, right? But that's actually really, nobody's going to be able to steal that from you unless you actually get robbed. And to have a different password and not to do something really complicated with, but long, the longer the password, and if you put a phrase of words that are not related to each other, that's actually harder to break than a short one with many funny characters inside. So a longer phrase, but different phrases for every website you choose.
Okay, then the other thing is also, how do we make a lot of us transact online. We want to make our credit card transactions more secure. What do we need to do?
Well, also assuming that your credit card number is already breached because you've used it on Carousel or any of these websites, two-factor authentication wherever possible, so that you get
What is two-factor authentication?
Two-factor authentication is when every transaction is being made on your credit card, it has to send you one of those one-time passwords to either your phone or to an email, something that needs you to verify a second time. And it might be inconvenient, but you're going to be glad that it came in when you start realizing, wait, I'm getting these notifications. Please use this one-time password to authorize the transaction. Wait, I'm not buying anything at the moment. Why is somebody spending $1,000 in Italy and I'm sitting here? So then you will know that two-factor authentication is going to protect you.
Now, on that note, Ben, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been great having you as a co-host today, and I look forward to seeing you on next week's show.
Thank you, Brian. See you next week.
Now, we've been speaking to Benjamin Ang, Head of Cybersecurity and Homeland Defence at the Center of Excellence for National Security at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, on Biztech's Asia Pacific Cybersecurity Show. I'm Brian Fernandez. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.